Welcome to Foundations of Emo, hosted by Claire and Dani. Each episode we take one of our favourite bands and dive deep into their history and origins, reminiscing on our own emo roots along the way.
Hey guys, welcome to our first official episode. This episode is dedicated to Fall Out Boy.
Woo woo.
And I'm really excited to talk about it.
I know, our favourite.
Our favourite. For years I've said that Fall Out Boy are my favourite band, and I don't know if they still are. It's just something that I started saying like 16 years ago, and I've just run with it ever since.
They're the band you always go back to, though.
Yes. No, I still adore their music.
Yeah. Well,
some of
most
it.
of it.
Yeah, because in the lead up to the podcast, I've been listening to them a lot. I went back to the very beginning and I've been listening to everything from the start, like chronologically. And there have been some bits that I have just been enjoying so much.
And some bits that I have not been enjoying whatsoever.
And some things I've heard for the very first time that I...
Yeah.
This is something that's going to come from this episode, is that they have released so much music. It's outrageous.
Yeah, they went through a period of time where they were just banging out the tunes.
And they just bang out like everything. Like they've got 2 best of albums. They've got loads of random
live stuff, yeah.
We'll get to it. This is going to be the History of Fall Out Boy episode. So this episode, I'm going to do the history of Fall Out Boy, and Claire's going to chime in a little bit with her thoughts. And the next episode, it's going to be mainly Claire's episode, talking about a different band, and I'll chime in.
So when we started this, Dani whips out an A4 envelope and pulls out these typed up sheets on which she has written some notes. And I started laughing and said, "Did you just pull out these things from an envelope?" And she said, "Well, yeah, I wasn't going to put them in my bag because they get dirty." I can guarantee this will not be happening when I have to do my one.
I'm a nerd, okay? I'm a nerd first and an emo second. I do this weird thing with bands where I will either know every single piece of information about them from the beginning of time, or I will know absolutely nothing about them. And for someone who has been calling Fall Out Boy her favourite band for the last 16 years, I really knew nothing about them. I mean, you know, we all know things about Pete Wentz, usually against our will. But I didn't know how they started. I didn't know a lot about their personal lives. I didn't know a lot. So I really enjoyed researching this episode because I learned so much about Fall Out Boy. And how am I going around saying they're my favourite band and not knowing anything about them?
I'd be the same though. I'd say, oh, I love Fall Out Boy, but I forget the names of the other two most of the time.
Well, I know their names, okay.
It's not Pete and Patrick. I don't know.
So, Fall Out Boy started in Wilmette, Illinois, which is apparently a very affluent suburb of Chicago. So they're from money. And Pete Wentz, as we all know Pete Wentz, I feel like he doesn't need an introduction, but he was in several bands.
I feel like you might not like Pete Wentz.
Oh, do you
think? Just
think?
the vibe I'm getting?
This is my Pete Wentz rant episode. This is, what's it called? The roast of Pete Wentz. He was in several bands around the scene. He was in like kind of punk and hardcore bands. Everybody knew who he was. I know, it's so hard to believe that he liked to be the centre of attention. But he knew Joe Troman. I think they were in a band together, or several bands. I don't really know that situation. But they decided that they were going to start a side project. And that side project went on to become Fall Out Boy, because they were in the punk hardcore scene, but they started to get a bit tired of it because they felt like it wasn't about activism anymore. Fall Out Boy was supposed to be this kind of easy escapist band that wasn't, you know, political or that like didn't have a message. It was just like kind of fun for them.
Can I just say though, I love when it's like we'll start this side project, where I'm just thinking back to our band when like we didn't even have enough talent to be one band yet. These are like, we'll just whip out a side project.
They have talent, Claire. That's
oh
the
wait,
difference.
yeah.
So at the time, Patrick Stump, who in the process of this research, I learned that his name was Patrick Stumpf. Like with a H at the end.
Yes! And he dropped the H.
He dropped the H because it's hard to pronounce. So I presume it probably is just pronounced Stump, but I just enjoyed that there was a H at the end and now there's not. So he was drumming for a band called X Grinding Process X, which is just a fabulous name. Sounds like an MSN Messenger like name that you'd have. So he was a drummer, and he was in a local bookstore, and Joe Troman was in there with his friend, and they were having a chat about music, and Patrick came along and started being this little know-it-all and was like, oh no, this band, blah, 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 blah. And he like just wanted to talk about music. So the friend kind of got forgotten about, but Joe and Patrick started this massive music discussion. And Patrick knew about Pete Wentz because everybody in the scene knew him. And I don't know how it came up. They started talking about the new project. and Patrick wanted to be a part of it. He wanted to be involved with Pete Wentz because he knew Pete Wentz was like going somewhere.
Can I just say that, would you absolutely hate to be that friend who just got forgotten about?
Well, I didn't even know that. Like, maybe that friend didn't play an instrument. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, but you'd be raging.
Well, you watched magic happen. You watched Fall Out Boy become a
That's
thing.
his claim to fame.
So Patrick wanted to be in the band and started chatting to him and said, I have an mp3.com website, which I know a lot of old websites. I don't know that website, I'm not gonna lie. But he said, like, Joe, go listen to my music. And apparently on it there was a lot of acoustic songs that Patrick recorded. So Patrick wanted to be the drummer of Fall Out Boy, but when they heard his music online, they were like, no, we want you to sing. So they were like, come and audition. And apparently Pete like wasn't into it at all, didn't like his music, and Joe was the one who really pushed for Patrick to become a part of the band. Typical Pete Wentz. So they made him audition and they made him play songs from Save the Days through Being Cool, which went on to be an album that really inspired Fall Out Boy's first album, Take This to Your Grave. And Pete really wanted Andy Hurley to be the drummer of Fall Out Boy because he was in another band called Race Trader with him, but Andy didn't want to. Andy was busy, he'd got things going on, and to be honest, he just wasn't really interested in Fall Out Boy. Over the first couple of years of Fall Out Boy, there were several different drummers until Andy actually became the drummer. But basically from the start, it was kind of the four of them, and it's always been the four of them. And then to decide on a name, they had loads of different names, and they actually asked a group of their friends what they should be called. And Fall Out Boy is obviously inspired by The Simpsons, from Radioactive Man and Fall Out Boy.
I love how you say obviously.
Obviously, everybody knows this reference. But yeah, so they decided on Fall Out Boy, and they went on to play a gig where Pete called them something else, and from the stories he just said like something really long and complicated, which would not be unlike Pete Wentz. And everybody in the crowd was like, no, you're Fall Out Boy. So Fall Out Boy stuck, and that became their name. Something that I really like is that because they were coming from the hardcore punk scene, Pete started calling Fall Out Boy Chicago softcore instead of hardcore. I don't know why, I always just really liked that. And I used to have a hoodie that said Fall Out Boy Chicago softcore on it, and it's like the biggest regret of my life that I gave it away.
Why did you throw that out? Yeah.
Because I went through a phase in my 20s where I was like, oh, I'm not emo anymore, I'm a grown-up. And here we are now in my 30s.
Oh no.
And I've gone full circle.
Wonder could you get one of them?
Oh, I don't know. I should definitely look. So they gigged a lot locally, and Pete advertised them really heavily on early social media. That was his thing. So people kind of knew about them around Chicago, and the gigs were getting like a really good reception. So Uprising Records contacted them and wanted them to release an album. And the problem was they only had 3 songs. Which, I mean, it sounds like something that could happen to our band.
I was going to say, like...
Apart from the record label contacting us.
And only having 3 songs. We had no songs.
We didn't get that far. We were still in the cover stage. So, yeah, they were like, okay, of course we want to release a record. What band doesn't? So they had 2 days to write and record the album.
2 days?
2 days.
Oh.
So Fall Out Boy's An Evening Out With Your Girlfriend is the album that came out of that. And they wrote and recorded it in 2 days, and they hated it.
I don't know if Dani actually has this CD, would you believe? And me looking
Compact
at it, I'm like,
disc.
yeah, I can't say I'm the biggest fan either.
It sounds like it may have been recorded on like a Nokia phone.
Yeah, I remember Pretty in Punk. I remember downloading that. I'm not going to say LimeWire because surely I'd matured from that at that stage.
Could have been. The album came out in March 2003. I didn't buy it in 2003. I bought it years later after I'd gotten into Fall Out Boy. I kind of went back and found earlier stuff. It sounds like it was recorded on a potato. There's no production. Like, there is like basically no production. It sounds like your friends recorded an album in their...
Sounds like our stuff, really, doesn't it?
Sounds like your friends got their Nokia out and started recording an album on their phone and just like did one take of every song and just were like, this is the album. The songs are good. It's the production is bad.
Yeah,
the songs sound like Fall Out Boy, like more punky, more pop punk kind of thing. But definitely, you know, you can hear Patrick's vocals. He always sounds the same. It sounds like Fall Out Boy. And what I really like about this album is that you start to see the long titles for the songs.
I was just about to say, because the first like 5 songs are max 4 words, and then you have number 6, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 words long.
Yeah. The world's not waiting for 5 tired boys in a broken down van. And they also have another song on it called Parker Lewis Can't Lose, but I'm going to give him my best shot. So they're kind of known for their long titles of their songs, and they, like, I mean, this is their very first release, and they were doing it straight off the bat, which I really like. And then they do have the song Calm Before the Storm on this album, which they then re-released on their next album as well. So they actually had a big fight with the record label because they did not want this album to be released. They did not like how it sounded. They did not think it represented them. It was such a rushed, hurried thing that happened. So they kind of broke away from the record label a little bit. Then Andy Hurley came on board, and they wrote Take This to Your Grave, which I think took 2 weeks. So An Evening Out With Your Girlfriend took 2 days, and then Take This to Your Grave took 2 weeks. And he was on, from this album onwards, now we have Andy Hurley in the band as well. They were signed to Fueled by Ramen, which was an indie label. They said, yeah, we want to release an album. And then whatever way it worked, An Evening Out With Your Girlfriend came out in March, and Take This to Your Grave came out in May.
Like, I just can't. It's like Taylor Swift does that. She releases an album every month. Where do you get the ideas?
I think it might have been to do with the label releasing it. Like, they released An Evening Out With Your Girlfriend quite late. Like, the band had moved on and recorded a new album, and then the record label released the album, like...
But even the fact that they wrote it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What?
What?
I cannot.
So they started to do a lot of gigging when Take This to Your Grave came out to promote themselves, obviously, and their shows were getting really good feedback, and they went on to play Warped Tour in 2004, which is really cool. So Patrick wrote a lot of the lyrics on Take This to Your Grave, and Pete fought him like every step of the way. There was arguments about it because Pete was like, no, I think we can make them better, and Pete wanted to change everything.
Of course he did.
But I mean, I love this album.
I would also agree with that. I think it's a great album.
It's very pop punk. If you only know Fall Out Boy from their singles, I don't think you would think this sounds like Fall Out Boy. It's way more kind of just upbeat pop punk.
So, and like the song titles and the lyrics, I loved the lyrics. They were really one of the first bands who started with all the kind of poetry almost in their lyrics, and the big long names and the long words, and like you'd hear a lyric and you'd go, that's such a good lyric.
Yeah, it's so clever. The witty wordplay. I think that's why I started calling Fall Out Boy my favourite band, because I loved what they were doing with the lyrics. And then they had titles for songs on this album, including Sending Postcards from a Plane Crash, Wish You Were Here, and Reinventing the Wheel to Run Myself Over, which, like...
So self-deprecating.
Love it. So then they did have a few popular songs off this album. They had Dead on Arrival, which was the first Fall Out Boy song I ever heard. I got it on a Kerrang CD.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I heard was Where Is Your Boy Tonight?
That is also from this album. And then Saturday as well is another popular one from this album. I heard Dead on Arrival on this album, and then I went to the shop and I was like, I need to buy a Fall Out Boy album. I really like the song. And when I went to the shop, From Under the Cork Tree was like on all the shelves because that had just been released. So I bought that, and it didn't sound anything like Dead on Arrival, but that's how I got into Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, I think, their first album was definitely, you wouldn't necessarily like their second album if you liked their first one.
They're very different, and I think that's the theme with Fall Out Boy. Every album sounds completely different to the last.
Yeah.
And I think I look at it in like there's an album for every mood that you have. There's always like a Fall Out Boy album that will suit what you want to listen to.
That's a very positive way to look at it. I look at it going, these albums are shit. These ones are good.
Oh, something that I learned about this is the very last song on the album is The Patron Saint of Liars and Fakes, which is a great song. And that was composed in drop D, which is kind of like a darker kind of key, and it kind of adds like a dark ending to the record. And Patrick wrote it, but it's not really in his vocal range, and he found it really difficult to sing. What they did was they recorded it in that key, so that then the very first song on From Under the Cork Tree, our lawyers made us change the name of the song so we wouldn't get sued, is also in drop D. So it actually like connects the two albums.
Oh.
I don't know, I just fucking love shit like that. Like that.
Have you tried playing them in succession?
No.
You love it so much that you...
But I went back to listen to what key it was in, because I was like, does this sound? I don't know. I just love little Easter eggs like that, little clever things. That just makes my life. So yeah, I like that little kind of lead in from one album to the next.
Yeah.
We're going to do that on our album. And then in May 2004 they released, this is when they start getting fucking funky with the releases. So they kind of don't include An Evening Out With Your Girlfriend, you know, in their music career. They wanted to distance themselves from that. So Take This to Your Grave is their first like proper album, properly produced. That's like where Fall Out Boy starts.
Yeah.
Then they released My Heart Will Always Be the B-side to My Tongue, which is a tiny little EP with 5 songs on it, and it came with a DVD.
What?
And
oh, hang on, we're taking out the DVD.
I'm going to take a moment here because
I
I have this in front of me. And I don't think I've ever watched the DVD.
Well, we know what we're doing tonight.
Like, how have I had a Fall Out Boy DVD for 16 years?
What is on the DVD? Oh, hang on. So it has the story, the videos, performance, acoustic, the cutting room floor, and then extras.
I have never watched that DVD, I'm telling you now. I have a Fall Out Boy DVD I've never watched. But yeah, like, why would you release your first album? Like, it's doing well, you're going on Warped Tour, and then you're like, let's release a little EP and a DVD. Like,
yeah, and the EP, like, it has songs that are on the next album. Well, okay, it has one song.
This is on Spotify if you're looking for it, but you'll find it under singles as opposed to albums, because I thought it wasn't on Spotify and then I found it. It's only 5 songs, as we said. It's all acoustic. Bit of a me and Claire there going on. Let's do an acoustic set. It has a cover of Joy Division's Love Will Tear Us Apart, which I really like.
It's a great cover.
And I mean, everybody has covered that song, but
Yeah.
I really think Fall Out Boy do a bang up job. It's an excellent cover. They also have an acoustic version of Grand Theft Auto Where's Your Boy, which was on their first album.
Ours is better, though.
Yes. No competition. We're better than Fall Out Boy. There's also an acoustic version of Nobody Puts Baby in the Corner, which they went on to put like the full version of that on their next album,
Yeah.
From Under the Cork Tree. And then there's a song very close to mine, Claire's Heart, which is my heart is the worst kind of weapon, which we covered in our band as well.
We did.
And then I just wanted to mention the other song purely because of the title. It's also a good song. I like this EP. I love every song in the CD.
Yeah, so do I,
really
yeah.
do. But the 5th song is called It's Not a Side Effect of the Cocaine. I'm Thinking It Must Be Love, which I just love that.
Actually, the second song, if you're looking at the back of this.
Yes, what I meant the 5th song I'm talking about.
Oh, right, okay.
Do you want to fight?
Okay.
So in between that and From Under the Cork Tree, Pete Wentz tried to kill himself. So trigger warning for suicide and drugs and emo things. I think like we don't need to put a trigger warning because I think
No, it's called emo, so really it's in there.
yeah.
I didn't know this about him, though.
So Pete is bipolar and he attempted suicide. He tried to take an overdose because of his mental health, and the suicide attempt actually went on to inspire the song 7 Minutes in Heaven, which is on From Under the Cork Tree. So From Under the Cork Tree was released in May 2005, so a year after the EP and 2 years after their first album. They spent a lot longer writing and recording this. They actually had time to
3
sit
weeks?
down sit down and spend time on actually constructing an album that they were happy with. I think they were happy with Take This to Your Grave, but this was just like,
Yeah,
okay, we're
not so
serious
much,
now,
yeah.
you know?
We're an actual band.
What I wonder what that feels like.
Hey!
So this is when Pete Wentz decided he was going to write all the lyrics and Patrick could write the music. Pete exclusively wrote the lyrics on this. So the lyrics are a step up from Take This to Your Grave. They're a little bit more complex.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I would have assumed, yeah, but now when you say it, it makes sense. When I think of what I think of Pete Wentz and Patrick Stump, I love Patrick Stump.
I know, he's so cute.
Team
I just want to give him a hug. So the name of the album is a line from a children's book called The Story of Ferdinand, which is about a bull who would rather sniff flowers under the cork tree than participate in fights.
That is so cute.
So that's where From Under the Cork Tree
it's like
came
Patrick
from.
Stump. I
So
feel
it's
like
like
that's him.
So rather than participate in fights, I presume they want to make music. I like that. And then the artwork is a van in the snow, and it's a nod towards the car accident that they had when they were traveling to the video shoot for Grand Theft Auto Where's Your Boy.
Now, I would never have known that's what that is.
Yeah, because it's like the back of black and white heads it looks like a theatre. But
Yeah.
what they're looking at is a van in the snow, which I don't think...
It looks like a train to me.
I have never really looked at it deeply
No.
either, to be fair, but this is my little trivia that I picked up in my research. 2 weeks before they went to the studio to record the album, they actually scrapped 10 of the songs they'd written, and then they wrote 8 more. I know, they like to do things
Wasn't
quick.
Well, am I right in saying Sugar We're Going Down is one of those songs that
One of the 8 songs that they wrote 2 weeks before they went to the studio.
Like, what?
Pete Wentz wrote it with his dad, apparently.
Aw.
Yeah. So obviously this album was their big success. This is when Fall Out Boy kind of broke into the mainstream.
I remember buying this album in Freebird. Do you
Oh,
remember
yeah.
Freebird?
I think it's still there.
Is it? Oh, it's fucking...
Let's go find out.
But I used
Next
to
week, a live episode. Claire and Dani investigate. Does Freebird still exist?
still sell these things. I loved Freebird because that's where you'd go in, and if I'd heard a band but I didn't know that much about them, I'd buy the album because it was so cheap. And I remember buying this album, and then my little cousin was born, so I was listening to it in my little Discman on the way to the hospital to see my auntie, and I always
Aw.
remember that. It sticks in my head.
That's nice. Because as I said, I had heard Saturday and then wanted to know more about Fall Out Boy. So when I went into HMV on Grafton Street, which is my spot that I used to go to all the time to find music.
R.I.P. HMV.
R.I.P. I went in, saw it all over the place, and I was like, okay, Fall Out Boy, and I picked it up, and I listened to it on my Discman as well. I remember listening to it on the bus home from town, and I was like, yes, this is something. This,
bit of me.
I knew it was different. It didn't sound like anything else I'd listened to, and something changed that day for me. I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
I have found it. This is what I was looking for, and I have found it. Yeah, my favourite band from then on. So yeah, obviously things really picked up for them then. They began to tour extensively, and they started going international with their tours. They went on talk shows and award shows. They got a Grammy nomination for Best New Artist, and Sugar We're Going Down won an MTV Music Award. So to think that they were just kind of a small band playing local shows, and okay, they played Warped Tour, but then this was it for them. So then they obviously released more songs. So they released Dance Dance, and then a little less 16 Candles, a little more Touch Me, which I always forget is a single.
I didn't know that was a single either. And that's probably one of my favourite songs.
They played it at Murray Park during the summer.
I'd like to say I remember that, but I don't.
I had looked up the set list before the gig, and I knew they were going to play it, and the second I saw that song on the set list, I was like, I'm going to die when that song comes on. I'm going to lie down in the mud and I'm going to die. And I pretty much did.
Yeah.
Life cannot get better than me hearing a little less 16 Candles live. I was dying. So this is also the time their fame started picking up, and this is when Pete Wentz rose to fame himself. He started doing a lot of interviews, and he started bringing up his suicide attempt and kind of telling his story. He started his own Decadence record label. He started a relationship with Ashley Simpson. So obviously they started to be in all the like
pieces.
That is a great album.
On a Monday, I'm waiting.
That is a really good. I love that album.
That's why I like Ashley Simpson. Really.
But obviously then they started to be in the celeb rags, you know, like about their relationship and stuff like that. And then there's Pete Wentz's dick pic.
I don't think I knew about this, or maybe I blocked it out.
How did you not know about Pete Wentz's dick pic? I feel like that's more famous than him.
I might have blocked it out.
I wish I could block it out.
Did Sadly. You see it?
Yes, I've seen it. And his fucking little bat that he has tattooed over his penis.
Oh no.
It's the little logo thing. I had to Google like the story about the dick pic because I couldn't remember it. So here I am Googling Pete Wentz dick pic, Pete Wentz nudes, Pete Wentz, like my search history is in bits. Apparently the story is he had a sidekick, like a really old kind of phone, like a BlackBerry kind of thing.
I thought you meant sidekick, like
like Radioactive Man and Fall Out Boy.
Like you're my sidekick, like
I'm your sidekick. Wow. We're dying for a scrap in this episode. First episode and we break up. No, it was like a type of phone that was really popular at the time back in the day, like a BlackBerry or like one of those things.
Yeah.
It was, I think it was really related to the emo scene. Like a lot of emos had sidekicks. That was kind of cool. But anyway, apparently it got hacked and that's how the dick pic got out. Mm-hmm. But knowing Pete Wentz, how we know Pete Wentz, I wouldn't be surprised if he let it slip himself, like leaked his own fucking nudes.
Yeah, because why would you hack Pete Wentz sidekick? I feel like there's a lot of other people's mobiles you could hack. Yeah,
or maybe he sent it to, you know, everyone he knew, which I just I like concocted a picture of him in my head and I'm just running with it based on zero facts. Pete Wentz, don't sue me.
I do remember though the first time I went to see Fall Out Boy, and I was really surprised that Pete Wentz just kind of took over. Patrick Stump did not say one word. And I was like, who is this lad? I don't know you. Let Patrick Stump speak. And I remember feeling like, oh, poor little Patrick. Now, obviously Patrick Stump didn't want to talk, or I'm sure he would have. But I do remember being like, ugh, I don't like this guy.
Yeah, I've never liked him, ever. So I did want to just... I feel like we need to do a little segment about Pete, just to
get all your anger out.
It's a lot of Fall Out Boy is Pete. So let's just say Peter Lewis Kingston Wentz III.
Oh, Christ. We're going there.
We're going there. Peter Lewis Kingston Wentz III is his full title. His father is also Pete Wentz, and I presume someone else before that if he's the third. But his parents met in the 1970s while campaigning for Joe Biden's senatorial run.
What?
Which... I'm only including this because when Joe Biden was running for president, I know people were saying if it wasn't for Joe Biden, Fall Out Boy wouldn't exist. So I just think that's funny.
Oh.
So that's why I want to include that.
Oh, I love Joe Biden now.
He created Fall Out Boy. Spread the word. I don't have much about his life or anything. I mean, I Google it if you want. I don't really care enough. But I just wanted to talk about
I don't think he's that bad, Dani.
just want to talk about all the side projects he has. And there is a quote which I was supposed to write down, I didn't, but Patrick Stump said something about Pete that was like, if I look away from him for 5 minutes, he's got like 30 different things going on and has made all these decisions that could impact Fall Out Boy for the next year. And like,
yeah, he seems like the type of person where he just has to have something going on. Like,
yeah,
he has to have something
I
happening.
mean, I relate to that, but it doesn't make me like him anymore. So he started Clandestine Industries, which have produced books, clothing, merch. They did a collaboration with DKNY, and Pete also was a model for that collaboration. He opened Angel and King's nightclub, which now has 2 locations, and he did that with several of his friends from other bands. So I think it was people from Gym Class Heroes, The Academy Is, Cobra Starship. Like, a load of them went together and opened nightclubs. Nightclubs.
I just don't correlate that with Fall Out Boy.
Well,
what
there you
kind of
go.
music do they play at said nightclubs?
I don't know. I didn't look into it that much.
Fall Out Boy?
Let's go.
What's it called again?
Angels and Kings? Angel and King? I don't know. Okay, let's do
We're
a
going.
podcast road trip.
Live podcast.
So he also started his own blogging platform, like his own kind of form of social media that was called Friends or Enemies. And it was supposed to be some kind of VIP platform. And it started out with the bands that were on his record label. He put them onto this blogging platform so people would follow it.
Where was our invite?
I know. And apparently it went up to having over 100,000 users. So it was quite popular. And this was before social media was that big.
Never heard of it.
I never heard of it. But it used to be like you could get an exclusive content from the bands that were on his record label if you went there. But then yeah, it was OnlyFans before it was OnlyFans. Probably get his nudes there. That was an assumption I made. So yeah, his record label was DCD2. He wrote a book called The Boy with the Thorn in His Side. The name came from Marcy, obviously. And then he also came out with a comic, or I think it was like a couple of comics called Fallout Toy Works. The storyline is based on the song Tiffany Blues from Folie à Deux, which we'll get to in a minute.
How do you pronounce that?
He is, I think, or was a TV host for a show called Best Inc., which I just think is so Pete Wentz.
Also, sorry, now that you've said this, flashbacks are all coming back to me. Do you remember he's on One Tree Hill?
Yeah, that was my next point. He was on One Tree Hill. He had a recurring storyline on that.
Oh, he was actually Pete Wentz in it.
He was Pete
It
Wentz.
was so cringe.
And I've never been more embarrassed for another person in my
I
life.
think I was more embarrassed for Peyton.
Yeah, having to pretend to love him. So she said, "My pen is the barrel of my gun. Remind me which side you should be on." And she said she thought that was really clever. Like, that was her line. And he said, "Huh, cute girl quotes me to me. Is it wrong that I'm turned on?"
No.
Like, I'll never forget that quote. It was
No,
the
I'm
cringiest
dying.
thing that ever happened. So he was on One Tree Hill. He was on CSI. He was on Californication. Like, he's like, there was loads more things that I read online, and I just didn't want to start listing out
I think
everything.
Patrick Stump was as well. He was in Law and Order. Everyone was in Law and Order.
Well, Pete Wentz has been in everything. And here is a cool little tidbit. He was supposed to be the love interest in Jennifer's Body.
What happened there?
I don't know. Adam Brody got the role. Imagine him and fucking
Yeah.
Year One licking face.
That's it. Actually, that couple though seems like it could work.
Yeah, 2 weird freaking gross people. Sorry, Megan Fox, but you're weird. Ugh. So that's my little thing about Pete Wentz. Basically, he does everything. Whatever. So then they went on to release their next album, Infinity on High, in February 2007. And this album is different. It starts off, Jay-Z opens the album.
And it just makes me want to die when I listen to it, because isn't he like, all the critics? I'm like, oh, stop.
The critics said it never happened.
And then Jay-Z goes, FOB. And FOB is the name of a test we do in work to test for blood in your feces. So I just can't cope with it, really, to be honest.
Stunning. I actually wanted to start this episode being like, the critics said it never happened. And then I was like, that's really embarrassing even for me. So yeah, so like straight away when you turn on this album, you're like, okay, this is different. In terms of how different they go on other albums, it's not that different.
No, but compared to the first two.
Yeah, but it's a departure. It's got more like funk, R&B, and even flamenco influences.
Yeah, to me this was just, I think I remember the video being on MTV all the time, and not that I hated, the main scene or anything, but I just felt like everyone then knew that song, and they just kind of went more commercial and towards, the bigger crowd rather than us emos.
Yeah, they went more mainstream. When the album was released, it actually debuted at #1 in America, so that shows how popular they were, that their album just went straight to #1. Apparently at this time, Joe Troman came out with an autobiography, and not at this time, sorry, he came out with it later, but when he's talking about this period of time, he said most of the recording process and the tours themselves for this album, he was consistently high on a combination of OxyContin and morphine and had heaps of bong rips to fill in the gaps. Like, he was off his face all the time. And like, something
that explains it.
If we discount Pete Wentz completely, I feel like the band's really uncontroversial. I feel like they're very, like, wholesome.
Weren't they all straight edge?
I don't know, probably.
I think they were.
When that was a thing.
Were you not straight edge?
I was a thing. I was straight edge when it was a thing. When I was like 16, 17. But
I'm pretty sure they were, and I think one of them might still be, but I don't know which one.
I think Andy is actually.
Yeah. Oh, he's a vegan.
Is that the same?
Vegan, straight edge? It's all the
Yeah,
same.
I don't know. But yeah, no, apparently like Joe was going through a really bad time at this time. And I was like, when I was learning this information, I was like, wow, I just always think of them as being just like unproblematic, like playing their little music.
Yeah, I
They're
just
like
think of
normal
them as-
guys. Again, if we're not including Pete Wentz in the narrative. The rest of them I always just think as being like really these normal guys that just want to play music.
That
but
had no problems.
yeah, there was loads of shit going on behind the scenes. And what really surprised me in my research was that the very first single that came from Infinity on High was The Carpal Tunnel of Love, which I didn't even know was a single. Yeah.
No, I thought it was Thanks for the Memory.
No, the first single was The Carpal Tunnel of Love.
Oh.
I love that song. I really like it, but I did not know it was a single. It was not a commercial success, obviously, because we don't even know. And then they went on to release This Ain't a Scene. It's a damn arms race.
Sorry, I'm just adding these bits in case you don't know what songs we're talking
I like the musical interludes. I'm not gonna lie. I told myself I wasn't gonna sing because I knew I'd regret it.
Can't help it. Could be the wine.
So take it away. So that peaked at number 2 on the US and UK charts, and then they followed up with Thanks for the Memories, which obviously was also huge. Everyone knows these songs. And then they did the Take Over the Breaks Over, and then they finally released I'm Like a Lawyer with the Way I'm Always Trying to Get You Off, which is the best name of all time.
It's so good. Like, how are they so clever?
Pete Wentz. Oh, it's just such a good name. But yeah, so they released loads of singles, loads of success from this album. What's your story with Infinity on High?
I am not going to lie, probably didn't ever listen to it fully through.
What?
I know, until we said we'd do this podcast, I was like, better listen to it.
You never listened to Infinity on High?
I just couldn't get
Who are
into
you?
it.
I've known you 16 years and I don't know who you are.
I don't know. So I'd listen to like the popular songs and then I'd just skip past them all.
Oh my god.
Now I have to say, going back
this album like changed my life.
Well, going back and listening to it now, I way prefer it now than I did when I was 16, 17. But I think at the time, compared to the first 2 albums, I was like, oh man, you sold out, you know?
Whoa. I can't believe you want to fight me so bad in this podcast. Fucking hell. This album came out when I was doing my leaving cert. I was 17 and I'd come home every day from school and I'd come up to my room to start studying for my leaving cert, and I put it on and I spent most of my time singing along to the album and not a lot of time studying for my leaving cert. But it was this album. I had a friend who lived in America that I met on like vampirefreaks.com or like something, and me and her used to like talk on MSN Messenger all the time, and she sent me a care package that had American Jolly Ranchers in it, and I remember sitting at my desk studying, eating Jolly Ranchers, listening to this album. That's the same time that I had my first love.
I thought your first love was...
Please, I've loved everybody. No, my first proper like boyfriend who I like ended up losing my V card to.
Oh,
like,
spoiler alert. Liz, don't listen to this.
Mom, turn it off. Yeah, no, it was my first like proper love, and everything is tied up. Like when I listen to this album, the memories I get of Jolly Ranchers and talking to this chap and this chap, everything is tied up in this album. But this album was just, I don't know.
What it is? It's just come to me there. Whatever, I don't even know the name of the song, but there's a song where the first line is last year's kisses these, and I was like, ugh, what? And I just
last year's wishes,
whatever.
And that's I'm like a lawyer. Why can I not say I'm like a lawyer? I keep saying I'm like a liar. I'm like a lawyer with the way I'm always trying to get you off, me and you. I
just remember every time that line came on, I'd be like, nah, next. I just didn't like it, and the rest of that song was actually okay. It was just that line,
and that's the one that's like me and you.
I don't know the words.
If I woke up next to you. I remember dating that guy that I was obsessed with, and I remember like hearing that line being like, if I woke up next to you, and I was like, imagine waking up next to a man. I was so innocent.
What happened?
He became an incel.
Oh, of course.
The album title for Infinity on High came from a letter from Vincent van Gogh to his brother, where he describes his renewed health and says, be clearly aware of the stars and the infinity on high.
Cute. I'd just like to know where on earth they knew this. Like, you know, if we had to name our DMGI album, we'd name it like, I don't know, Wine or something.
Wine? I like All Men Should Die.
But where do they come up with these smart things?
No, this is my, one day I will write a book and it might be an autobiography and it's going to be called Fuck Men.
Oh.
But also, Fuck Men. And I feel like we could call our album that if you want. We'll talk about it.
You're going to have to make it an audiobook, otherwise it's just going to be Fuck Men, but Fuck Men.
Yeah, but when you see my face when I say it, it makes sense. But yeah, like I like that there's a little background to like the names of the albums and the...
Yeah, and it's not just made up, like the first thing they think of when they wake up.
Or just like the name of a single or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously this album was highly successful and they had to follow it up, so they came out with Folie à Deux, which is very controversial.
I don't even remember this album.
So this is where I fell off. And to me, it's
See,
wild.
I'd fallen off the last album, so I just never got this far.
What's wild to me is Infinity on High. I have such a relationship with that album. And it was literally, you know, the following year they released Folie à Deux. And I was gone. I was off the train by then. Like, what happened between me being so obsessed with an album and then the next album coming out and me not even buying it because I didn't care? That's when I fell off the emo train.
This album are great.
Well, what happened was, years later, I would say 2013, 2014. So Folie à Deux came out in 2008. So like you're talking 6 or 7 years later is when I got back into my emo phase, because I had fallen out of the emo phase altogether. It wasn't to do with Fall Out Boy, like I just completely stopped listening to music. When I came back to it and started listening to all the old stuff, it was really exciting because I had all these albums to listen to that I'd never heard before. And I listened to Folie à Deux in about 2013, 2014 and I fell in love with it.
It's really good.
And it's their most hated album.
But that song, I Don't Care Live, is so good.
I don't really like I Don't Care, but I don't know, me and the singles always have like a tenuous relationship. Because their fame was like so much, and Pete obviously like had all these controversies and everybody knew Fall Out Boy and they had blown up like basically overnight. So when they were recording this album, they actually went really quiet and they didn't tell people they were recording an album. They didn't answer questions in interviews about the album. They just wanted to keep it as quiet as possible for the recording. But apparently the recording of the album was painful, is how Patrick Stump referred to it as. They were fighting constantly.
I just think that's so sad.
But again, I always just think of them as like unproblematic faves.
Yeah, exactly.
And
like,
then when I was reading this, I was like, I can't believe they were all fighting the whole time. Basically, Joe Troman and Andy Hurley, they thought that Wentz and Pete like had all the control because they like
did.
Pete and Patrick wrote all the music and Troman and Hurley like felt ignored. So eventually Joe Troman had a discussion with them and was like, I want to be a part of this. I want to create the music, not just play it. So they gave him more control. So everybody had more input into this album. It wasn't just Pete and Patrick.
Which is why it was so bad. No.
And it never should have happened. No. So Pete Wentz went and did this like viral online campaign to promote the release of the album. As I said, I was off the wagon at this time, so I have no recollection.
No recollection either, to be honest. If you'd asked me, I would have said this is one of their more recent albums. As in...
Yeah, 2008, just like the other day. Do you feel old?
Yes.
But it was based on George Orwell's 1984 and the concept of like Big Brother's always watching you and all this, apparently.
That's totally the vibes I got when I was listening to it.
Well, that was the online viral campaign. I googled it and there was like loads of information. I was like, I'm not even going to get into it because I could do a whole episode on this, so we won't. But there was an online campaign. When it came out, it didn't get the commercial reception that the previous albums got, and it didn't do well at all. And they released the single I Don't Care, and that peaked at 21, which is really bad compared to like their previous stuff. So yeah.
And here's a question: was She's My Winona about Winona Ryder?
I think it is, but I didn't look into it, so I don't know.
I mean, who else would it be about?
There's not that many people called Winona, so let's say that. So they went on tour, and when they were playing songs from the new album, they were actively getting booed by the crowd.
That's so
People
sad.
hated this album. Hated it.
I just think even if you hate a band, would you really boo them? I mean, they're clearly trying to live their best life.
Like, they were at the height of their fame, and people were going to their gigs and just booing them when they played new stuff.
No, I mean, half the stuff they play half is a bit of an exaggeration, but if I don't like a song when I go to one of their gigs, I don't boo them.
Yeah, you just like, that's when you go in to pee.
You're like, I'm gonna go to the bar now.
Yeah, you go get a drink, you pee. So this album had loads of guest artists. It had William Beckett, Elvis Costello, Travis McCoy, Gabe Saporta from Cobra Starship, Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco. Like, there are so many people on this album. And what's really interesting to me, Lil Wayne is on this album. Pharrell Williams plays a synthesizer on one of the songs. Debbie Harry is on this album. And I don't think that's publicised. Debbie Harry's on this album.
What song? Let's just check our notes.
She does guest vocals on West Coast Smoker.
Like, why was this not more publicised? I feel like people knew that. Because guaranteed the album doesn't say featuring.
Yeah, I don't know. It's wild. Like, when I read that, I read it like 4 times. I was like, what?
Random.
Who knew this? So this album, like, was massive. I suppose they were at the height of their fame, so they had the power to get all these people on board. But it's just mad to me.
Yeah, now, as I said, I definitely like it much more now than I did back in 2008.
I didn't listen to it then. But to me, this album, I listened to it and I was like, wow, this sounds really different to Fall Out Boy. And the more I listened to it, the more I fell in love with it. It sounds to me like a musical.
What?
It's like a musical.
Where? Explain your thought
I don't know.
process.
It's just like all the different instruments, the way he sings, the like way the songs are paced. To me, it sounds like a musical.
Okay, I'm going to listen to that now and see if it sounds like a musical.
I always think of this as their like musical album. Like, it could be a stage show. Like,
Fall Out Boy the musical. Can you star in it? You can be Pete Wentz.
Oh, great. But I love this, and it's 100% the best album for putting on in the car and having a sing along to. It is a journey. If you want to test your vocals, put this album on. It's excellent. So obviously with the reception of that, they were kind of like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, people didn't like our album, what are we going to do? So they decided to release a greatest hits album.
As you do.
Which to me,
Hey guys, remember us as we were.
Well, maybe, but they've also, at this time, bear in mind, released 3 albums that they, you know, count. An EP, and then this 4th album, which nobody likes. So where's the thought process, let's release a best of? Like,
Who are you, ABBA?
so November 2009 they released that. It was all the
Songles.
it was all the singles that they had released until that point, in chronological order.
Why? Wait.
This is like where I'm like, Fall Out Boy just released stuff all the time, and like half the time I'm like, why though? Like, what?
But are we saying why though
though?
in the in the context of Spotify, where you can just make a playlist of all the singles, whereas maybe back then it was like a thing, because
Yeah,
you'd
but
have to go and like swap CDs to put on the singles.
I still don't see the point in this. I don't know why it exists. I've never listened to it one time in my whole life. And it did have 1 new song on it. Sorry, no, it had 2 new songs on it, and then 2 like really rare songs that were hard to find. So they went on to release one of the new songs, which was called Alpha Dog.
Never heard
Limited commercial success. It wasn't a big thing. So then they released that in the November, but just before that, in the October, they played Madison Square Garden, and that was to be their last gig before they took a hiatus. Everybody in the band was having a really hard time. I think Folia not doing well obviously contributed to that, but everyone had their own shit going on, and it was not a good time.
What age would they have been around then?
No idea. Google it.
Some researcher you were.
Oh! So Patrick was at his heaviest weight, and he started to hate the fact that they were always being called like an emo band. He really started to resent that whole image.
Oh, that's awkward.
Andy was suffering really bad from depression. He said it was the darkest depression he'd ever felt in his life. And then Pete, who at the time had been abusing Xanax and Clonopton, he was also going through his divorce from Ashley Simpson, and he was going back to therapy. Everybody was like really having a shit
Andy?
time. I said Andy. I didn't talk about Joe, but like everybody was having a bad time. So they took a hiatus, and Joe and Andy went on to work on a new project, which is called The Damned Things, which is another band with Anthrax guitarist Scott Ian and Every Time I Die's Keith Buckley. I listened to them for the first time the other day when I was doing this research, and they're very generic rock and roll. I want to say Queens of the Stone Age, but I don't think they sound like Queens of the Stone Age, with just that kind of vein. Like, they're just kind of like rock.
So not like Fall Out Boy at all.
Oh no, not like Fall Out Boy at all. So it was 3 years later when Pete and Patrick got in touch again and started talking, and they were like, let's do some new music. They got together. Patrick had actually tried to have a solo career in that time as well, but that never really took off.
I knew about this, and he literally like made an album and recorded every single instrument, every single vocal all by himself.
Bless him. Love him. So they met up and they tried to write some new music, and then they didn't like what they were coming up with, so then they just shelved it, put it away. And then months later they met up and tried again, and this time they started thinking like, let's reimagine the band. Let's not just go back and do Fall Out Boy as Fall Out Boy is known. So they didn't want to sound like the old them. They wanted a more modern reflection. They were older. They were like, okay, who's Fall Out Boy today at this age? Not like when we were teens.
Yeah.
So yeah, they wanted to sound more pop, and I didn't realize this was a goal for them.
No, pop.
They decided
When
to
you
go
said
pop.
pop there, I thought you were going to say posh.
They wanted to be posher,
Oh,
more
no.
elegant than
Fall
ever
Out
before.
Boy.
So they recorded the album in secret, and then in February 2013 they posted a photo of the band around a bonfire in Comiskey Park in Chicago, and they were throwing photos of their back catalogue into the flames of the bonfire.
I do love how they do this.
Like,
stuff.
I just love this stuff. Like, all the little stuff. That makes the band for me. Even more than the music. Like, I just love all these little things. So then, April 2013, they released Save Rock and Roll.
Save rock and roll. Just in case you didn't know.
So the first single, My Song's Not What You Did in the Dark, was released in February, and it peaks at number 13. But the album was released 2 months later and instantly debuted at number 1.
I do like this album.
I don't.
Why did I know you were going to say that?
I listened to it a lot when it came out. A lot. Probably not when it came out, actually. Probably later. But
What do you not like about it?
I just don't know. It's Courtney, bitch.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, okay, fine. I think
they have Courtney Love on it and Elton John. Like, it's epic in some respects, but like the tunes, I'm just not getting behind.
I feel like their first 2 albums, every song was a tune, whereas every album after that, you were like, I'm just gonna like these few songs. And
I do like the song with Foxes.
love that song.
Really like that song. And it was only a couple of years ago that I actually realised that they released a music video for every single song on this album.
Again, what?
I was sitting here one day and I put on YouTube on the TV, and then I was like, just put Fall Out Boy in the background, and I looked up their videos, and they call it the Youngblood Chronicles, and every single song on the album has a video, and I think they're like related.
Did not know that.
Like, you can watch it like a story kind of thing.
Well, I'll be doing that after I watch this DVD.
Yeah, I don't know. Not my fave. Definitely not my fave.
I kind of get mixed up with this one and everything after it, to be honest.
Yeah, it gets blurry. I find it hard to think of like what songs are off this album. So that was April, and in the October they released Paxam Days.
Never heard of it. No, sorry, I've heard of it, never listened to it.
Don't bother. It's a hardcore punk album.
Ah, yes.
Or sorry, it's an EP, but
I thought
hardcore
they
punk.
were Chicago's softcore.
Well, this was a punk album. Like a wido. Like, just, this is where I'm like, why do they just keep releasing things?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's like all these ones that they've just had that are kind of crap that you wouldn't put on an album. They're like, let's just shove it together and put it on an LP.
But it's hardcore punk. It sounds nothing like Fall Out Boy.
Maybe
It's
they're
literally
just
like that
testing
kind
the
of like
waters.
shouty punk, like,
Yeah.
like, I can't think, I haven't listened to this
Anti-punk?
album recently. Yeah, like that kind of vein. It's 8 tracks. It's only 13 minutes altogether, because they're just really short little punk songs. If you're into punk, you might like it more than you like Fall Out Boy, but I just never really got into it. And they called it a collection of songs we did for fun.
Cute,
which
though.
sums it up, but it's just like, why? I don't know. They're just like, why do you always have to be releasing things all the time? Like,
Yeah, and I do think bands sometimes fall victim to that, where they think they have to release something all the time to stay relevant, but you end up just releasing things that nobody really cares about.
Save Rock and Roll did pretty well, so there was literally no need to a few months later release a punk album. It was like, I know it's like they wanted to do it for their own enjoyment, but it's just like, why though? Like, I just keep saying that
But
because I'm
then
like,
also
what?
they're probably, they can afford to. Who cares? Like,
yeah.
we
Well, I
still don't
think
listen to
that
them.
is it. Like, who cares? We'll do what we want. So then January 2015, they came out with American Psycho, American Beauty. Fun fact, they wrote this while on tour with Paramore.
did not know they ever toured with Paramore.
Foreshadowing, maybe, for a future episode.
Dun dun dun.
So before they even released the album, they'd put out the singles Centuries and American Psycho, American Beauty. And then when the album came out, it went straight to number 1 again.
Again, I would have said all these songs are on Save Rock and Roll.
You thought American Psycho, American Beauty did not come from the album American Psycho, American Beauty? Is that what you're trying to say to me?
Maybe.
But they lost the whole thing about like the fun song names.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Do you like this album?
No.
Again, one of the ones I probably like more now than I did back then, because they just kind of get stuck in your head, but not great.
Not great at all. Like, to me, I'm like, if the song came on, I'd be like, oh, tune. But like, when I think of Fall Out Boy and them being my favourite band, I'm like, oh no, that's not Fall Out Boy to
Yeah.
me. Like, that's not who Fall Out Boy are.
Whoa.
There's a lot of like woes and like
Nice.
there's a lot going on. Like, to me, I feel like Centuries and I'm like, remember me for centuries.
That's a great song.
But there's Irresistible. Is that off a different album?
Irresistible. See
No,
what I mean?
it's on this one as well. Like, to me, that's the same song. Like, they have loads of songs
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
album that to me it's all the same song.
Yeah, agreed.
It's
And
Irresistible.
one-word song names.
Whoa. Oh, yeah.
Can you see why we made it so big?
Stunning. I love this for us. So they released Irresistible and they released Uma Thurman as well as singles after the album came out. Uma Thurman is a bop. But I go through phases of this song where I hate it and then I love it and then I hate it
Yeah,
and
I'd
I
be
love
the
it.
same.
And this time around, when I started listening to their back catalogue, like from in chronologically, didn't like it. I'm not gonna lie. And I thought it was a song I liked.
I don't think I liked it when I listened to the album first, but I probably like it more now. What is wrong with me? Am I just maturing?
And then again with the releases, They went on to release a remix album called Make America Psycho Again.
I didn't bother.
I tried to listen to it, like, in the name of research for this, and I knocked it off after 2 songs. It just wasn't for me.
Why would you remix it?
It is every single song off the original album featuring a different rapper on every track, and like a remixed version of each song.
But why?
It had Azalea Banks, Wiz Khalifa, Migos. It had all these really big names on it, but I do not see the point of it.
No, I don't either. I've never listened to it.
I feel like if you are a Wiz Khalifa fan, for example, this
Who
isn't
is
going
a Wiz Khalifa fan?
I don't know. But it's not going to get you into Fall Out Boy. And if you're into Fall Out Boy, you're not going to get into Wiz Khalifa. Like, I don't know what was the goal here.
Maybe they're just trying to be like, you know, everybody's friends.
I just don't get it. So then that brings us to January 2018 when they released Mania. I was heavily pregnant at the time when this came out, and I had gotten back into the emo music and everything, and then I was like, oh my god, Fall Out Boy are going to bring out a new album. I was like, this is exciting. And I really like this album. Controversial opinion.
You must be the only one. Honestly, it's terrible.
It's only now that they're like talking about bringing out new music, spoiler alert, that Twitter is like, once it's not another Mania. And I'm like, did everyone hate that? Because I actually like it.
It was a song about milk or something. Wasn't there a title about milk? Or tea.
Yeah, Stay Frosty Royal Tea or something like that.
Yeah, no, terrible.
So this was more experimental. It's kind of like electro pop. Pete Wentz described it as a palate cleanser. He said, it's like when you clear the cache and erase the hard drive, which is really only something Pete Wentz would say.
I was going to say, can you just speak normally?
Can you just speak like you're a human? It is different. It's way more like...
crap.
I don't want to say dubstep, but like in that vein.
Yeah, I honestly, it's just forgettable to me. I couldn't name one song apart from that Milky Tea one.
You can't even name that song. So before the album came out, they actually released 5 singles off it, which is wild. So it's like, why bother release the album then at that stage? They released Young and Menace, which I really like that song. Champion, hate that song. Champion to me could also be Irresistible or Centuries. Like, to me, they're all the same song. They released Last of the Real Ones. That's a good song.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Hold Me Tight or Don't. I love that song.
Don't know it.
I remember it came on the car radio one time and I was like, what is this doing on the radio? I lost my mind. And Wilson, Expensive Mistakes. There's something really catchy about Wilson. It's named after the football in Castaway. I don't know why.
Where did they get these things from?
But you know, that's the one that's like, I'll stop wearing black when they make a darker colour.
Oh yeah.
And like, that is the most embarrassing lyrics. Like, I would have wrote that when I was 12. That I found that really highly embarrassing, but there's something real catchy about the song that it sticks in my head. They thought the album felt really rushed, so they pushed back the date that it was going to be released. It was supposed to be released in September. They didn't release it until the following year. I don't know. As I said, mixed reception, mainly bad. Again,
skip past it.
But this is like Pete saying, this is like us clearing the cache. We're like just getting this out of our system. They're releasing something for the fucking sake of it.
That's what it feels like with some of the stuff. They release it for the sake of it. Don't bother.
They also had it, like, I didn't even write down everything they've ever released because, like, we'd be here forever talking about it. They released a second greatest hits album at some stage, Believers Never Die Part 2. They did a live album, Live in Phoenix. That's actually where the single Beat It came from. The cover of Michael Jackson's Beat It.
That is good, though. I just love Patrick Stump's vocals.
Okay. You can have that. Like, they just keep releasing shit and it's like, why? Like, can you not just save it and release like all good stuff? Like, why release the shit stuff? And it's like, they released that and then Pete's saying like, this is a palate cleanser, and it's like you know it's not good. Like, you're not releasing it being like, this is the best thing you've ever written. You're just releasing it for the sake of releasing it. Maybe there's some people
out there who are like, this is great.
Well, I do like Mania, but like, the fact is they're bringing out this stuff and being like, this was just for fun, and it's like, well, I don't know.
It does feel very for the sake of it kind of thing sometimes.
And I just wanted to read this little excerpt from Joe Troman's autobiography, which is called None of This Rocks, a memoir by Joe Troman. But I just really like this little summary. So it says, for the first time in my short life, I can reflect upon my 2-decade career in my band with pride. The good, the bad, the disgusting, and the abysmal. The embarrassing outfits. The unfathomable haircuts, the songs that have become classics for some, the ridiculous kissy face photos for teen rags, the interviews where I completely let my guard down and talked about being a pathetic spineless twerp. That time we played SNL and, instead of trying to sound good, thrashed around like morons. Those times we got to play Letterman a bunch, and that one time when Jay-Z introduced us on stage. That time I vomited inside our van, all over everyone, because I thought drinking an entire bottle of Bushmills was safe to do. I'm proud of it. All of it. Except the awful cover of the original Ghostbusters theme. Sorry.
That's so cute. I feel like he just talked about our lives.
When did you drink a bottle of Bushmills and vomit all over our van?
Like Smirnoff Ice? I don't know.
Same thing, bro. So that brings us to present day when Fall Out Boy are teasing new music, which
so exciting,
is due out the day that this podcast is released, so we can't
comment on it.
Yeah, we can't.
But I am excited.
I'm excited because they're doing the fun teasing.
Yeah,
everybody loves a little tease. That's why I'm so liked.
Okay.
I'm calling my therapist.
But it does make you excited about it. And all these little clips, and you're trying to figure out what it means.
Yeah, they took out a full-size ad in the like a local Chicago newspaper, the Chicago Tribune, and it just said FOB 8, like FOB 8, and it says if you built it they will come.
What does that mean?
Nobody knows. And then they were like sending people postcards saying like go to this website, and the website had pink seashell beach on it, and it was all like beachy themed. And then they have a shell that they sent to Ollie Sykes, and it said 1 of 13.
1 of 13 shells? So it must be 13 songs. Oh, I'm so clever.
To me it says that Ollie Sykes is going to feature on the album.
Yeah, oh well, definitely.
But it made me think, is it 1 of 13 people that they have in the album? And there's going to be like 12 other shells for 12 other like guests.
As long as it's not Elton John.
But I don't feel like there's enough days. There's only 4 days before it comes out, so I don't... When is everyone else getting their shell, if that's the case? Where's my shell?
Yeah, so speculation, is it going to go back to the original, or is it going to be more Mania?
They have released a short clip of the new song, and it sounds... Everybody's like, wow, it has guitars. It sounds like actual Fall Out Boy.
Fingers crossed.
One can hope.
One can hope. I'm excited though. I will be listening 100%.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be there on the day. Wake up in the morning, put it on first thing. So do you want to talk a little bit about your Fall Out Boy experience?
My Fall Out Boy experience? Well, Fall Out Boy are one of the bands, when we were talking about this podcast, I was like, I've seen them at least 5 times, which is probably rare for one of the bands. But I do remember the first time I went to see them, like I said, thinking, who's this Pete Wentz fella? Why does he keep talking? And the second time, I think was with you. At that gig, there was girls who must have been 15, 16, and all I could think was, how do they know these songs? They must have been in nappies when this came out.
This is your parents' generation.
But then it's so cute that people that age, that I suppose it'd be like us discovering a band and realising they actually broke up 10 years ago, but it was so nice to see teenagers bopping along to these tunes when we were like in our 20s.
Yeah, because as I said, I saw them last year in Marty Park.
Yeah.
On the Hello Mega tour. And there was 2 girls standing in front of me who I would say are 10 years younger than me. And when A Little Less 16 Candles came on and all the stuff like from the early albums, the girls knew every word.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're little babies. And I wanted to sing along with them, but they'd be like, who's that fucking mother trying to like...
Owl.
Yeah. Why is that grandmother trying to join in with us?
And then they had that tour. So they had a tour where they originally announced Europe and UK gigs. So myself and my friends, not you,
oh, rude.
bought tickets to see them in Leeds. And then like a day later they announced they were playing Dublin, so we also bought tickets to see them there. So we went to see them in 3 Arena, and then 2 days later went to Leeds. But were you at that gig?
I was the 3 Arena one, yeah.
Professor Green supported them.
Oh my god.
I feel like either blocked that out or didn't bother going.
I don't think that I think I turned up after him.
Like what? Why would you pick Professor Green?
Here's something that me and Claire were talking about the other day as well. I was like, I've seen Fall Out Boy play so many gigs. Like, yeah, maybe 4 or 5. I've gone to see them, like, all the times that they've played here. And I have, like, no outstanding memories from any of those gigs. And I don't mean it in a way like, I was blackout drunk, I can't remember a thing. Like, nothing stands out to me. They get up on stage, they play their songs, you sing along, and you go home. And nothing interesting happens.
I think what stands out to me is every time I go see them, I don't care about, like, what age I am or whatever I'm doing. I just sing along, I just have the best time, and I couldn't care less if I look like an L1 dancing along to all these old tunes. It's just a good time.
That's fair. That's really wholesome.
So wholesome. Also, I remember Pete Wentz wore an Irish jersey and a skirt.
Yeah, at Hello Mega.
Which was unnecessary.
I was like, why is he doing this? I hate this man. Why does he always need the attention on him? Why though? And then I saw a video he played like, I think Scotland, like a few days later, and he was wearing the same thing, but like with a Scottish jersey. I was like, fuck you.
Oh, so it's just
you traitor bitch.
Shout out Pete Wentz, we love you.
Me and Pete really need to have a scrap. Yeah, no, I don't know. Like, I've seen them so many times, and I'm like, I just went, they played the songs, I sang along, and I went home.
And you loved it.
I loved it, but
yeah.
I was never on the edge of my seat. Like, they get up and they do their performance, but I feel, especially, you know, we'll talk about it in a future episode, but especially coming from seeing My Chemical Romance this year. I saw My Chemical Romance, and then a few months later I saw Fall Out Boy, and they're both like contestants from my favourite band. And My Chemical Romance was so exciting. They were changing the set list every night. They were doing something different. They were having different chats every night. They were enjoying themselves. And I think seeing the 2 bands in close succession really showed to me that Fall Out Boy are getting up there and they're just like making their money.
Yeah, because I feel like Fall Out Boy don't need to do anything else. Just plays the songs. We'll sing along, you know? Also, that could be the alcohol talking. I don't know. Every time I see them, I'm drunk. No, I'm joking. But still. But like...
I would still go to see every gig they play here. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm still saying they're up there with my favourite band.
Shut up!
But I'm just I don't know.
I do
They
know
don't
what you mean.
excite me the
They're
way
not
My Chemical
exciting,
Romance.
but they're nostalgic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll always love them.
They will always have a massive, massive place in my heart.
But your heart will always be the B-side to your tongue.
I love it!
So we want to do something in all of our episodes called songs on repeat and songs to skip. We made it really difficult on ourselves, saying that we could only choose one for each, and you can't like do a joint first or whatever. You have to choose one song.
Yeah. What is it?
So my song to repeat.
Yeah.
So I really knew I was going to have a hard time trying to narrow it down to one Fall Out Boy song, and in my listening to all of their stuff in chronological order, I found a surprise winner in Fame is Less Than Infamy.
What?
Yeah.
Sing it there.
It's the one that's like, I'm alright in bed, but I'm better with a pen. Because I was listening to it and then I was like, I need to listen to that again. I put it on repeat and I literally listened to it, I'd say 6 times in a row, and every time I absolutely bopped, and I was like, wow, there it is. There's my song on repeat, because it is literally on repeat. I love that song. That's from Infinity on High.
Yeah, that's probably why I don't like it.
Rude.
I had a hard time picking this as well, because to be fair, I think they're all such bops and I'd probably repeat a load of them. But
Yeah, that's why we narrowed it down to one.
For nostalgia's sake, the one song I would never skip past and I would always listen to is Grand Theft Auto, Where's Your Boy? Has to be.
Wow.
I know I'm going back to the orig, but I would just never skip past it if it came on.
I actually do skip that song sometimes.
Oh my god, why are we friends?
I can't believe this podcast has divided us like this. Once I hear it and it's like, where is
Yeah,
your
I'm
boy?
like, yeah, and then it's like,
I'm like, oh, here we go.
So, on that note, what is your song to skip past? Is it that one?
No, my song to skip is Sugar We're Going Down.
What?
That is so controversial. I always have a bad relationship with singles because I always feel like they get overplayed. And it's one of those things that if someone's like, hey, what's your favourite band? And I'm like, Fall Out Boy. They're like, I love Sugar We're Going Down. I'm like, no. Dude, like,
Yeah,
there is so much better.
A good song. Side note, did you ever see that YouTube video where somebody made a phonetic video?
Yes.
And it's like the dinosaur? La-la-la-ra.
Lula-la-ra.
Oh,
No, I just...
that is controversial.
And listening to the back catalogue now, like, I do skip it when it comes on. I'm like, okay, we know this one. I don't need to listen to it to refresh my memory.
Yeah, but
that
if
is
you're
the
at a
most
party
overplayed
and that
song.
came on.
No, because I had this fight with myself because I was between Sugar We're Going Down and Dance Dance as being the songs to skip. But I was like, if I was at a party and both of them come on, I would have an absolute bop to Dance Dance. I would not have a bop to Sugar We're Going Down.
Fair. I just can't.
I mean, I'd lie on the floor and sing all the lyrics. But I wouldn't be bopping while I did it.
Oh, well, my one to skip past, besides the entire Mania album, is the Elton John one. And I don't know if it's because
Really?
Elton John is on it. I'm like, ugh. But I just, no. And they always play it at their gigs.
Desperation.
Like, save rock and roll. I'm like, no, come on, skip past it. It's just, no, it just brings it down and everything. They play it at their gigs. I'm always wondering, will they wheel out Elton John for it? And they never do.
Wheel him out on his deathbed. Elton John's not dying, but in my mind, when you said wheel him out, he was in a hospital bed for some reason.
It's just weird. So that would be my one to skip.
Okay. Fair enough. Controversial opinions. Tell us your ones to repeat and ones to skip.
And if you trust our music taste and think I am a good judge of character, because we know Dani is not, listen to our playlist to go along with this episode.
Yeah, so if you go on Spotify and go to our page, Foundations of Emo, you'll find that we're going to do a playlist for every episode that we release. And what I want to say about the playlist is, this is not their singles. If you want to listen to This Is Fall Out Boy, there are 8,000 playlists that have their singles on it. We're choosing some of our favourite songs from each album, from everything. Well, I'll choose some from Mania, Claire won't. And it's just like our favourite songs from each kind of genre of Fall Out Boy. Like, they are multiple genres.
They are multiple genres.
So yeah, it's our little playlist of songs that you should know by Fall Out Boy, and we'll do it for each episode for each band that we talk about.
So what are we going to do next week?
Do you want to reveal, because it's your episode?
Dun dun dun. I kind of regret this being my episode now after listening to the song they just released. Next episode, we are going to talk about... That's a drum roll. Where's our drummer when you need them? Paramore. So also very in tune with music being released at the moment.
Not 100% sure what date we're going to release that episode, but if you watch our social media, we will obviously be talking about it. Our social media on Instagram, we are at Foundations of Emo, and on Twitter, we are at Foundations Emo, because we had too many characters. So follow us over there and we'll keep you up to date on when our episodes are being released, and follow us on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. Hope that you enjoyed this episode, and thanks for listening.
Okay, bye.